All right. So super excited about this conversation. I think this is one that's a long time coming. And I'm really interested in what other people have to say about this topic, especially around uh, just your own personal experience with being involved in cults. And do you really have any clue the different types of cults we get ourselves into? I think that this is such an important topic. But let's start with two things, because the original reason we started this, you brought it up, Dennis, is that we were talking about Gnosticism, and then we started talking about our own religions that we've been a part of. I myself, I've been in the Latter-day Saints, which is Mormonism. I've been in Scientology, heavily, deeply involved in that, to the tune of $500,000 and 20 years of my life.
Wow.
And in the Mormon Church, when I was involved with Church of Latter-day Saints, it was more of childhood, brought into it because my mom wanted community for us. She wanted us to have be part of a community, and I think that that is a common theme for why we get ourselves into or become a part of cults, right? So, Dennis, let's make sure we're defining cult the same way, right? In the Mark Passio world, Mark Passio, an amazing teacher. What on earth is happening? The link will always be in the show notes for anything that I do with Dennis. Occult, OCCULT, is the word that Mark talks about a lot, because he is wanting to de-occult things. He is wanting to stop the obfuscation, stop the hidden part. And so the cult, coming from culture or community, tribes, if we can look at it that way, and then occult would be the hidden parts of those. Definitely there's enormous amounts of hidden pieces to Scientology. In fact, most of what's known as the bridge is hidden. And then got a hair in my eye. And then with regards to Mormonism, there is a lot of hidden information there. Even, I mean, I think in the flock, there isn't a lot of information that comes down that it was originated from aliens. I mean, that is literally roots of this, Joseph Smith and the golden plates and all of this. I didn't know that as a kid when I was singing the golden plates and, passing bread that I was allergic to. We're all eating Wonder Bread and would break the bread and pass it in the cup of water. So many things that were taken literally, and then we would do these actions as symbols that, as a child, was confusing. And I think that that's a big piece of why this discussion intrigues me so much, is because that the level of confusion that leaves a child with, this depth of confusion about themselves, about what is really true, and how much we assign power to these organizations or cults or religions, and et cetera, et cetera. So I have many questions, Dennis, but I want to get your take on it, because you brought up some really important pieces. And I think this is definitely not a debate. I'm not here to debate anyone. I really just want to have a discussion. And Dennis and I are pretty good. We don't debate so much. It's like we're really wanting to know and to understand. And there's esoteric pieces that are really interesting, and there's a lot more available to us now. I think Gnosticism is definitely more ready for a resurgence. I know in my life, just listening and looking at those. But again, I don't want to go down that path again of finding another cult to be a part of. Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about these pieces. And it's not bashing any religion. I think, generally speaking, any religion, whether it's government, whether it's football, whether it's Christianity, or name any other 70, 100, whatever religion names there are, we have to remove the names and labels and just look at it from the purpose of why we find ourselves needing them or wanting to be a part of a cult, right?
Yeah.
Because I think even a family can be cultish, you know? And how do we express ourselves in that? I'm just, I have a lot that comes up from this. So I'm excited to have this discussion with you. So Dennis, what are you looking at? Looks like you are furiously looking at some cool stuff.
I got to apologize to people that, well, the power's been out here for hours. That's why I had to use my backup laptop. So yeah, so it's dark and the background, and the stream is a little bit slow. And I was noticing as you're talking, there's a bright glare in my glasses because the reflection off the screen. So I turned the contrast down, so now you don't have the glare so much, right, in the eyes. But then I look like it's hard to see. Let me just put the brightness up just a tad. Okay, so that's a little more normal, but there's still some glare in the eyes. So people, sorry,
I don't think it's a problem. I mean, I have my window. I'm right here in my window, so I know I get washed out a bit, but I'm not that concerned about what I technically look at. I just really, look like. I want to have a conversation that invites others to sit with this, to think with it, to discuss with us about this, to bring their take in on it. I wish I had had a mentor when I was 10, 11, 12, and I was going into every church I could get into because I thought that's where the answers would be. So I went into the Catholic Church. There is a beautiful Catholic church right behind our house. And it's a Catholic school, and there's nuns and the whole, and I would go in there and had been into the church many, many times and dipped my finger and did all the little, processes and rituals and all of this with, oh, that's neat. Let me try that. Let me see what that does. And then I would look at hit the box and the spirits inside the wall. And, whoa, like you got electricity back on.
We're back. Hold on. 1 second.
Yeah, you got some electricity.
Now it's too bright, but I turned one light off, so that's a little better. Not so
cool. Well, congratulations, you got the electricity back on.
We'll leave this setup going. I won't switch computers. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. It sounds like a young age, you're always a seeker. There's some truth here. You're searching for it.
I wanted answers. I wanted to know.
Me too, but not at such a young age as you. It sounds like you're much more of a seeker than I was at a young age.
Constantly. But I was and am very empathic. So what that means is if someone would touch me, I would take on their emotions. I would feel what they were feeling.
Okay.
And much of it would confuse me. I didn't fully understand it. So I have many memories of, those types of things. And then when I was sexually abused early on, and I wonder, this is interesting. I'm just now looking at this. I wonder if those that are so empathic, if perpetrators go after empaths. I never thought about it with myself.
Empathic ability to want to draw on that emotional energy, the loose.
I wonder now that I'm doing more emotional work and what I've been. So I'll go and I'll do physical work and I'll do a whole physical transformation in my physical body, and then I'll do mental work and I'll really work on the mental part, and then I'll work on the emotional, and then I'll work on the spiritual. And it's not that I'm wanting to segregate. I really try to work on all of them, but integrating them. But it seems like they go in natural cycles. And right now I'm in a very deep emotional piece. And so I keep my basics in with my physical, but the emotional piece is really interesting right now for me. So I'm unraveling a lot of pieces. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is because so many religions, I believe, is pray the right word? They prey on the insecurities.
Yeah, they don't realize it maybe, but yeah.
Oh, I think there's a lot of intentionality around it, because if they were just doing it to help, there'd be a whole different thing. But I think most religions, like for example with Scientology, it's all about money. It is all about money, right?
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it's money.
Yeah,
it is. Period. That's it. I mean, you are selling books. Everybody's selling something.
Yeah.
And it's never free, never from the goodness of your heart. My father, who was a minister in the Church of Scientology, however, fundamentally gave everything. And there are people who are in churches, the individuals that maybe don't agree with or don't buy into that, or they're staff or slaves, and the church gets it all, which is what is the structure for Scientology, because the staff do not get that. It's a complete structure where the staff are
always the ones in the know, and they're like, I like to call it it's all groupthink, right? Whether it's like you said, a corporation you're working for, family, you can't totally survive in this world as an individual on your own. You have to be a part of groups, and there's always a cultic atmosphere to it. I find, you know, that's something America 1776. And individual, the original Constitution was that one individual overrides corporations and the rights of an individual, a living human being over a corporation. It's a fictional entity. The individual wins.
Exactly.
But now look what's happened. Hundreds of years later, it's like it's all.
Well, no, but it started though. So let's talk about this, because that's a really important piece. So there were cycles, because it was already coming from over in England. You had basically that whole hierarchy was set up, and here we were trying to shift that in the United States, in the United States, or what was trying to happen with the revolution and then republic to create that. But what I think it was in late 1800s, this Albert Pike guy. You know about Albert Pike because you studied Pastio as I did, right? With the Freemason.
Didn't he start the Illuminati?
Yeah.
No, it's Adam
Well,
Weishaupt, 1776. He started
he was part of the Freemason, which I think adjusted the original, because Freemason, a builder who was free, at least I thought that was the original root. And then Albert Pike created the inversion of it, literally putting forth, creating, because I think he understood the Hermetic principles. Everything is mind first, everything is mind. And so he was putting forth, but I think he also had, if it wasn't himself that had the knowledge and the power and insight, he was getting it from someone who did, because he literally in writing predicted or put forth World War I, World War II, World War III that we're in right now. The whole, right? This is what you do. This is what you do here. This is what, and it's kind of following
predictive programming.
Predictive programming, exactly. But words that didn't even exist: Nazism, fascism, right? Those didn't necessarily exist. Those books weren't written, and then they were put forth. So to me, that's a cult as well. I mean, that's then dark occult, hidden, right? So just because a religion is more out in the mainstream, and we're still looking at the cults. So what are the different cults? I mean, this is the conversation I want to have. This is what I want to bring and really have this discussion. So you mentioned that your father was a Jehovah's Witness.
Jehovah's Witness. Well, the Bible students are kind of an offshoot of Jehovah's Witnesses. And he didn't really, teach us or try to push it really, he was kind of a, really distant father actually. And that kind of messes a kid up. Both my parents were. And so it does, the psychology of projecting God as a certain, it's like your parent, it's like subconsciously. And if your parents are kind of screwed up, and then they attached to this cult. You know, it was always sort of part subconscious in my mind, right? But it never really, he didn't push it. I became very familiar with the doctrines, but I don't, you know, didn't really follow it. Or well, here's an example, right? My sister told me once, do you remember those arguments Dad and Grandpa would have over Bible verses and Jehovah's Witnesses and the doctrines? And I didn't remember. It must have been so traumatic as a kid. I blocked it out. She's like, "That's just vicious arguments." And I'm like, I don't remember any of that. So it's there subconsciously. And in later years, I had the sense there's something to the Bible, and I tried to read it. It makes sense. It's scary crap. It's just insane shit. How do you make any sense of it? And I would just sort of run away. But later, you know, over time, hearing other people have different alternative interpretations, I came to a better, deeper, abstract metaphor, symbolic understanding.
So when you were a child, he didn't ever read the Bible to you, and it was. So because I understand that Jehovah's Witness is very literal. They take the Bible literally as opposed to allegorically. And so you'll find.
And it's according to the inner communist core of the Bible Watchtower and Tract Society in New York is going to dictate and tell you what it means, and you must comply, or we're going to shun you. We're going to kick you out of the organization, like all those tactics.
Yes.
Right? All cults.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And you'd think that in that moment of hearing that insanity, you would just go, that's not part of what I want to be a part of. And yet, you know, I myself was in Scientology almost 20 years, right?
Sounds like you did a lot more conscious work and reading and investigating. I didn't. Like Bible is just, you know, I went to church occasionally now and again, but it's like I had a lot of questions. But you're afraid to ask questions because, you know, it's like that Jehovah's Witness indoctrination. You ask a question, you don't, you're out of here.
Scientology has the same thing. But here's the thing. Early on, I became a minister of the Church of Scientology. And in that, you study the world, at least in the 90s, early 90s, the minister's course was very in-depth, and I studied 70 plus of the world's religions. And it was a very robust and deep course, which I don't think they'd have today. Because
they don't want you comparing to others.
You don't read any other books, any other dogma, any other anything. And but as a minister, I had that as a foundational piece. My father being the minister, that's just, it was so natural for me to want that. And then as a result of that, and the Scientology does not have a Bible. They don't follow the Bible at all. They have L. Ron Hubbard's writings, right?
He's the inspired Apostle
Paul. Millions and millions of words.
No,
nothing biblical. Nothing biblical. It's all, no. The only thing that would be more of a religious nature in that there was a hymn of Asia that Hubbard purported himself to be the Messiah returned. So Buddha returned, Siddhartha. And I thought that's really interesting because I spent some time really enjoying my Buddhist friends and practice with them in New York. And this was not the case. This is like, well, then you're doing exactly opposite of what the teachings were. So going back to then how cults, and if we look at, because you did a comparison, and I don't have it in front of me, but we can go through and look at some of these comparisons you did if you want to look at and talk about some of that.
Hold on a second. I'm just going to check your live stream, see how it looks.
Is it glitchy?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's glitchy. It's kind of slow, but this is my backup Chromebook. My main, I fixed the hardware acceleration on my main, but it lost power. And once the power went out, it drained down the battery. So it's a little slow, but it was better than last time.
So mine's glitchy?
No, mine's kind of, I can see it's slow. I went to live stream. This is just a little, backup Chromebook. It's not as powerful as my Linux laptop. I probably got the hardware acceleration working on that one. It'll look better next time we do a live stream.
You sound good. I wanted to pull up this one thing that really intrigued me when you brought it up. I have nothing against AI. In fact, I use it as a tool. It's very useful, but it's always going to spit out data based off of what its input is. And that's why I like having live conversations, real discussions, not just taking what the large language model is going to spit out for us. But some of the things that it did talk about with regards to what you wanted to bring up with regards to Gnosticism.
Yeah.
How about what actually separates a religion from a cult? We were talking a little bit about that. Why do humans need belief systems?
Yeah.
I'm really curious about that one.
Part of the natural regulation of a group. You can't survive totally as an individual. You need to be part of groups and the structure, there's a certain structure and infrastructure of a group, an organization that is necessary, but we have a hard time just making it totally voluntary contribution, voluntary cooperation. It's some inner communist core always forms, and we're going to tell you what truth is, and you must comply, or you're out of here. At the very least,
do you think that stems from fear?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
So fear from those who are putting this together, whether it's a religion or whatever, I think a lot of what gets us trapped ultimately. Okay, so it's fear. We'll put that there. Now, I do believe an individual can survive on their own, not necessarily procreate, but I have seen documentaries of individuals who have chosen intentionally to go live in the Alaskan, and the gentleman lived there for decades even, right? And thrived. And then, so I don't necessarily agree, but isn't life about relationships, right? Isn't life about creating and expanding relationships? So there's that, but does it mean that we need to go and be involved in a variety of cults or stuck in belief systems? And is it possible to live without them? So here's another one. With regards to, let's say, how do I word this without being okay, so I won't put any religion in there because there are clearly intelligent people in all religions. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So what? And I'm removing myself because I have my own judgment. So I'm just asking you this question and for us to ponder it a little bit. What attracts intelligent people, capable, competent people to religions?
There's that deep down, I think deep down, everybody, we know there's something more to life. There's some sort of creator, even though we argue and fight and have all the different opinions and wild imaginations about that. And we're trying to define that. And so there's a bit of that in everybody, possibly. I do believe in the RPC versus, some are like literally don't have that divine spark. But if it's within you, then you're kind of God in the sense that there's a bit of the divine spark, the Gnostics would say, in your heart. And so you're trying to define your own psychology, understand yourself and reality, and other people too are trying to do that. And so we conflate and misunderstand religion, though, with that trying to understand your own mind, your own psychology and reality, because then people start making up imaginations and names for the gods, and you got to do this, and we're going to punish you and burn you at the stake because you contravened that. And they start making these structures. Then this becomes religion, these structures that are not connected to truth. It's bypassing your intuition. You're not using your holistic intelligence, logic, reason, common sense, intuition.
But you're intelligent. But you're an intelligent, capable individual,
right?
Who
but
has
you can be co-opted by the fear of being cast out of the group. I think Pasio covered that in his early podcast. The fear of the alpha male father figure who's like control of the group, and they're going to cast you out of the group, and then you would die on your own in the jungle, and it becomes part of the subconscious memory embedded in birth after birth after birth. So, you're one's cast out, he's gone. And so the woman remembers that, becomes part of her subconscious cellular memory when her child's born, and they indoctrinate to the group, don't contravene the group too much or you'll be cast out in the jungle. That's a death sentence. And it'd be, thousands of years later, we're afraid to go against groupthink, and we are susceptible to groupthink.
But again, those that are intelligent and have the ability to think and decipher that, everything you just said to me is more of the ape.
Yeah. Part of the reptilian brain. That's part of our brain.
But we're not, I mean, so much more than that. And I think.
Sure. We're evolving beyond that. Yeah.
We always have been. I mean, my goodness, I think of everything that Leonardo da Vinci did, or anything that was created. I mean, you just look, we have no clue the true history of what we've had. And I think that we're now, it's inverting even more to make us into these boxes and structures, that we've missed out on the enormous amount of creativity that has been around us for thousands of years prior. Sure. Maybe tens of thousands. I don't know. It's so interesting. Are we going to solve it all right now? Not sure. What questions do you have?
Well, you talk about history and fake history. Archaics.com. I follow him, and he's on YouTube, and he's studied for 26 years in Texas prison, had nothing else to do. There was old books in the Texas system about history and chronology, and it became his fascination, he found. And that he didn't have to work or have responsibilities, wife, kids, and he just studied and memorized, and he put together a whole thesis based on all these books you can't find anymore, pretty much.
Where did he get these books? They were just in the prison?
In the old Texas prison system, actual physical books that can't be altered, like PDFs and electronic versions. You can
so he's at archaics.com?
Archaics, ARCHAIX.com. And, he's got a deep theory. He's got so many, interesting documentations back hundreds and thousands of years ago. They just documented what they perceived. All kinds of strange stuff, the complete works of Charles Fort. I don't know if you've heard of this guy. Archaics has read this, and so many things that people haven't come across, documented. Charles Fort, hundreds of years ago, stuff like a big meteor falling out of the sky, slowly, and people are like standing around, watch out, what's going on here? And it slowly hits the ground. It's like all in slow motion, and then ground as if it actually happened quickly, but it's all in slow motion, stuff being thrown up from the ground. And people are just, okay. And they walk back, there's a big rock coming at you, just moving. Like, is this just made up stuff? But he's got so much data of this kind of stuff being reported over thousands of years. He's a simulationist. He's concluded that and so many people talk about that now, the Matrix idea. We're in a simulation, and there's so much documentation of people. Like, what were they lying about hundreds of years ago? Mm-hmm. They didn't have the kind of mass control they have now in censorship. They can block this stuff up. And he's going on with his theory about periodic resets. He's documented, consistently over 138 years. Sometimes they're bigger than other times. Every 554 years, it pretty much destroys the whole world. And there's one coming in 2040, going to hit China, pretty much destroy China if you don't go visit there during in about 14 years.
I look at it this way. Two questions, because I want to ask you: is there any value to a cult or being involved in a cult? Is there any value in your viewpoint? And I'm curious, viewers, I would love to have comments and folks to comment if you feel, is there any value in being involved in a cult?
Well, it teaches you the power of mind control. If you eventually get out and you realize you're in a cult, and you learn to think for yourself and question everything, and then come to your own understandings of things. So the value of being a cult is to teach a lesson about cults on a personal basis, have more compassion for people stuck in cults, and learn how to mature, grow up for yourself, and get the hell out. There's your value. Right?
Okay. Yes. And so I'll look at, there were years where I would say, I'm not going to regret the decades that I gave and the wherewithal of my soul to Scientology. I'm not going to regret it. I didn't want it. It was too painful, especially as the construct was crumbling around me.
Yeah.
And so I look at, was there and is there anything of value now? If I would go back and say, is there anything that I would teach my sons? And when I was homeschooling them, I thought, well, the study tech would be the best, the study technology. But it is so not useful when you understand the trivium method. Because the trivium method is far more beneficial than study technology. Study technology is basically don't go past a misunderstood word. And clearing misunderstood words and demoing using physical. I mean, there's so much more to that. That was a very, very juvenile and basic kind of bubblegum body of knowledge. And after homeschooling my sons, that was one little piece. And my older son we were talking about the Learning How to Learn book, which I still have a couple of the books. And he was like, oh, I remember that book, Mom. And there were some fun drawings in it, but the drawings had nothing to do with the technology, right? To be able to think for yourself and not have to take something as dogma or as gospel. And if you do think for yourself, that you do not get in trouble or punished.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just fundamental 101 freedom.
You should encourage creativity and imagination and asking questions. But my parents, didn't. They just pretty much didn't interact with us kids. And I got 2 older sisters. And, punished or get angry or slap you if you ask questions. And so you get indoctrinated, and the school does that too. Send you to the principal's office if you question or ask questions.
Were your parents the same way? Were they raised that way? Did you know your grandparents?
Well, sure. They were indoctrinated too. Yeah. So you got to have some compassion for your parents. I was really angry at them for a long time. Sometimes still can be, but yeah. They're indoctrinated. Sure. Everybody is, right?
Both of your parents have passed on?
Well, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that is interesting. Boy, it's definitely a generational thing, I think. What I would hope, because I look at, is there something like, for example, the reason my mother wanted us to go to the Mormon church and go to Sunday school because of the community. It's the same reason I took my sons to the Unity Church in Austin when they were young. And I was I was the preschool gal because I wanted my son, I wanted that feeling. I remember that feeling of connectedness, of belonging, of being cherished. And I wanted that for my sons. Where we were singing together in joy and love and that. So, but that was my experience with Unity Church.
That's part of the cults, the love bombing and the connection, right?
Yes, but I love it.
Yeah. Well, we all have that craving for that intimacy and connection and relationship, and then cults definitely make the cult the person, the overarching becomes a person. Even in law, a person is defined as a corporation. So a bunch of people incorporated into a group think formally is called a person in law. It's crazy how they manipulate. You go to law and you say, are you the person, Dennis Gilmour? Yeah. Oh yeah. You're just admitting you're a corporation. Now they get you. They can do whatever they want to a corporation. It's a fiction. You don't have human rights.
Okay. So now you're talking about the nomenclature, the words.
Yeah.
And that is the key. Right there.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Because that's the key that locks us in.
Yeah. Left brain locked in left brain.
And locks us out of our truth.
Oh, really manipulates the left brain, the ideas, the concepts, the words, and they have to be defined, and they'll hold the definition in their law book. The person will hold it in their own mind, judge by their definition of what they think the words mean, or what their concept is. And if you can't read minds, I'm saying stuff and you're probably getting different impressions in your mind that I'm totally trying to convey. And without honest back and forth, trusting conversation back and forth to clarify what I mean by my words and vice versa. Otherwise you can't have good communication, right?
Yeah, that's the key right there. I think that and the rituals. I just went off on a mental tangent on witchcraft and Wiccanism magic, because I dabbled in that. And
I'm just curious, when did you finally start to realize, all these structures and the whole religious stuff, questions, and these are all cults that I'm getting out?
I think raising my sons, being a mom, and separating myself from the assembly lines that are set up. First, as a geriatric pregnancy, that whole assembly line, I had to leave that. And there was a power in me that was much greater. Not even a God force, but a force, because I had a definition for God that it was an entity or a thing. This power was all encompassing. It was just pure. It was universal goodness.
The monad, agnostics would say.
I don't know. I don't like the word monad, so I wouldn't call it that. But that energy came over me when I discovered that I was pregnant. And it was about 10 days after my father was killed in my parents' house burned down, and my father was killed. And he was my best friend. I talked to him about everything. We had just had a conversation that for me, it was afternoon. For him, it was evening. And then that night, I got a call from my brother that my father was killed and their house burned down. And so it was that moment of the deep emotional loss of my father, and then this explosive expansion of life after death, because I had almost a better connection with him afterwards, even though I missed his physical body so much. I missed the physical voice. I missed the physicality, right? Okay. The waking part. Okay. But then it started to cross over into my waking life, the dream state. And about 7 to 10 days after my father was killed, I got this intention, overwhelming. It was time to make a body. And at that time, my husband and I could not conceive. We were told we would not be able to have children. So we were going to look at adopting, blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, this is when my Scientology was crumbling. Because in Scientology, so my father being a Scientologist, the grief was so horrific. And I had helped so many people and counseled so many people, decades of counseling people, and tens of thousands of hours sitting in the chair as an auditor, as a counselor in Scientology. And they could not help me. They would not help me. In fact, they blamed my father, saying that he was connected to a suppressive person. That's why he was killed, or he was what's called potential trouble source. Talk about words. Talk about these false ideas. Yeah. You are a PTS, which is potential trouble source, right? So when I heard that, and then I heard a couple of other high-level Scientologists say, he's already picked up a new body. I see him already. I was like, you are so full of shit. Yeah. You are so full of shit. You have no idea what you're talking about. And I had given so much power to this one person. He was my twin. I cared so much about him. I was like, to hear him say that, I'm like, everything before and after was like, I had a question, and I started to question in that moment, in the depths of this horrific pain and loss. So that's when Scientology crumbled for me. And that was the beginning. And it took me a few years to unravel that stuff. And I thank my father for that, because he led me through it after he had dropped his body.
Interesting, because he was sort of into that too. So
yes, exactly. And I have such a depth of gratitude. Even though the loss is there is such a gratitude. Like I totally feel his presence. And there's been a couple of times in my life where he literally was there to and had my back and saved me. So
he kind of after death came to see his own errors in that Scientology and started to communicate it to you.
I believe so. I believe 100%. And then also provided certain new pieces of thinking that were missing. And Neville Goddard was one. Neville Goddard, straight from deep connection with my dad. And I was like, that is so interesting, right? I don't know if you know who Neville Goddard is.
Feel the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
Simple stuff. So simple. And these are the things of like the power of simplicity and pieces of this fundamental inverted piece of Scientology, which is complicated. Scientology is the most convoluted, complicated body of data that wastes so much time and energy.
Yeah.
I would say to anyone, run as fast as you can in the other direction. There's not a single tool that I would say is necessary for you to know that it is to meditate. And in fact, when I was 10 and I was listening to a lecture by Hubbard, you were not to meditate, yet I needed desperately to meditate, meaning to clear the screen and to be quiet, because I was so empathic and took on so much of others. And I want to say, here I am just like talking, and you're listening. Thank you.
Yeah, good.
I appreciate you listening. And so
good to hear.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm curious too. So it sounds like probably late 30s, you kind of started to wake up. As it's too personal to say, like.
Yeah. So my father was killed when I was 35. My first son was born when I was 36.
Okay.
Yep. And it took me a good year to to unravel. It was so painful. It was almost as painful, a different pain. The pain of losing my father, the pain of dismantling this construct was so uncomfortable, and no one can do it for you. No one can walk that path. No one can do it for you. It is excruciating.
Yeah. I like to think if someone's going to wake up, as we normally decide, kind of define the idea of waking up, it's about 30, a little bit after 30. For me, it was about 32, but I didn't, took many more decades of here and on and off, and kind of searching, kind of not trying to suppress things. I suppress and repress things too much, so I'm less.
But if you've invested so much into something, money-wise, time-wise, energy-wise, to make it believe, to make it be so big and real, you have to go within yourself to look at the depths of it, because there was so much time and years that I would second guess myself, and I would ask supervisors about specific things that I had questions about. And the only answer that they would repeat is, go find your misunderstood word. Like, okay.
Brain stuff. Who gives the right definition to the word, though? They'll tell you.
Exactly. And so there was no way to fully integrate it. And then you can't have discussions about Scientology. You can't, because it's only if it's written. It's, if it's not written, it's not true, this kind of stuff. And that whole dogmatic thinking is the trap. And it's funny because Hubbard would continually say how things are booby-trapped. And yet Scientology is completely
Scientology, though. Yeah, it's always not my religion. Everyone else's. They call that I think it's called the sunk time fallacy. It's a logical fallacy. You invest so much time and energy, money, years into something, it's hard to let it go because you don't like to admit you've been so deceived and wasted all your life, kind of thing. Yeah, it's hard to let that go. The other logical fallacy is authority. So the authorities in the church told it. It's got to be true. We get brainwashed with the idea of authority. Someone smarter than us submit to authority. Yeah.
I think if anybody has told you it's true, you should question at this point. And that's the problem, is I think that we look for cults or want to be in cults because we want somebody to tell us it's true. And no one's going to. If you know the truth, that's the only way to know truth. Passio, to me, Passio was the big shift for me, because I went from Scientology to more right-brained, very right-brained. So I dived into my yoga practice, and really diving into the right side. I wanted law of attraction. I was really into Abraham Hicks and really getting into that, all about the vortex and gems and jewels. And I still love my gems and jewels. I'm all about, I love them, but I'm not dogmatic about them.
Right.
I think that's
were you ever
about my
dogmatic
gems.
about the right brain stuff?
Oh, yes.
Because it's more individual stuff, is it? It's more, you go to a different kind of individualistic religion of
Well,
feelings and intuition.
all is one. That was dogmatic.
Yeah.
It wasn't my own thought. It was dogmatic.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where we have to question, are these our own thoughts, or are we just buying into something?
Yeah. If you have a divine spark, I would say we're all one at the level of that divine spark, but some people don't have it. Hylix, we were talking earlier about Gnostics. And, even if I sense that in you, and I hope you do in me as well, that we've got that kind of intuitive connection. There's a divine spark in us. Not everybody, though. And so we're at that level, but we're different. We have different backgrounds, different energy component composing our bodies, different experiences. You're man, you're a woman, I'm a man. So it's like we're not one at many levels in the energy realms, in the physical realm. Right?
And that's where, so I know you haven't done a lot of Rudolf Steiner study, but that's where he talks about how when the vaccinations were entered, that would come in to start to eliminate the soul. And I think that that's where we started seeing a lot more NPCs.
Yeah.
Is when they entered in the vaccinations, because they did, and I probably shouldn't be saying that because I'm sure that'll get censored somehow. But
not anymore. They don't care about that. People. My sister,
so,
she's like, "Oh, that's old news."
Okay.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's never going to be old. She's an NBC. I can't talk to her.
Rudolf Steiner talks about that in depth, how the separation of the soul was what the agenda, that agenda, and how they would do that. And I think that that's how the NPCs, non-player characters at all, this gamifying and making people into the zombies started to come about, where we lost the spark, but also, we think about the Cabbage Patch Kids or whatever, the kids that were created in an incubator as opposed to birthed, and now they're having creating bodies. They're creating bodies without going through the life spur, the sacred energy exchange. And so I think without that sacred energy exchange, now they're creating these bodies, and they have been for over 120 years, right? They've been creating them in incubators.
Crazy. Yeah, they tell us, they only came up with, this kind of technology or cloning, in the last decades.
Yeah.
Look at the archaic research they've had high technology. I mean, pyramids, we can't even do those today. Oh, ropes and pulleys, men using their muscle.
Gosh.
Give me a fucking break. You believe that shit?
Exactly. So something else that was that you reminded me of when you were talking about that, and that's the where'd it go? So go back to what you were just saying a couple moments ago.
Archaics, the pyramids.
Yeah. So
technology going back, he's got a theory going back thousands of years. We've always had high technology. They hide it. There's certain elites running the world who go underground cities, and they can preserve the technology and the knowledge. They come back up after their cataclysm, the worldwide reset cataclysm. And then also they're in contact with interdimensional entities, with, David Icke's reptilians. Humans are the elite, and there's an interdimensional component, Satan, demons, whatever, archons in the Gnostic lore, communicating to them. Control. It's a mass control mechanism right here in this dimension, this earth reality. And it's massive.
So cool. It's so cool and exciting. And don't you want to know it?
I do.
Okay, so that's what it was. The implant stations in Scientology, because Scientology goes into a lot about implant stations. So there's a book called Handbook for Pre-Clears, The History of Man. So this is not confidential stuff. This is all, like, if anybody crack open a book called History of Man.
This the Xenu stuff?
No, History of Man is more where Hubbard is actually going through, and he was going past track in past lives and looking at implant stations, and he mapped out, and he mapped out hundreds of years, thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years. And it's right there in the book. I read that book when I was like 10 or 11. It was a green book on my mom's shelves, mom and dad's shelves. They had green books of all the books, the original books. And the Handbook for Pre-Clears History of Man, and 8008. So 8 is the infinity symbol turned on the side. And then 8008 is the infinity term. So the Thetan, the infinite being, goes into 0, the meshed universe, immerses themselves in the meshed universe, and then transmutes it and comes back out as theta, right? So that's the formula 8808. And at least as I understand it, right?
I don't know. Matter, energy, space, and time is what MEST stands for, right?
MEST is matter, energy, space,
Well,
time. Yes.
A lot of people probably don't know what you meant when you said MEST.
Did I say MEST? Wow, I can't believe I
just throwing around Scientology
oh my God.
we all know.
I can't believe that came out of my mouth and I didn't even.
You just throw those terms out there expecting people to know. Say matter, energy, space, and time would be more.
I'm so glad you said, wow, that is amazing. That is definitely, yeah. Okay, so, and it shows you how long I've been into this, because when I remember sitting in the backyard reading this green book, and I would read about these adventures, and there's these implants that he would talk about, how we've had these implants. And that is what I was interested in. That is what I wanted to know about. And that is why I was so interested in Scientology. But then it got into all this other stuff. And I mean, I still would like to know the truth, but it won't come from Scientology.
Yeah.
Because that's
you're matching my darkness.
I am. So very interesting, huh? Yeah. The reason I say that is because in Scientology, the order of magnitude of understanding is millions, billions, trillions, quadrillions of years. Yeah. That's why they can have you sign a 2 billion year contract in the Sea Org, right? Right? Because of their perspective. But I think that whole construct it's so dangerous, at least for me. And I'm just grateful that my sons have the wherewithal. And I would say to anyone,
well, you were out of that before you had them, so you didn't try to teach them any of that stuff, right?
No, I was not. I was absolutely not. It was crumbling.
The brainwashing about 36, you're sort of out of it, or that's when you just started questioning?
Crumbling from the day my father was killed.
Okay.
It began to crumble because I needed help. Now, 17 years before, when I had gone to the church for first help on my own determinism, when I was sexually abused and they told me it was my fault, right? The chaplain said that. It was like, because they can definitely manipulate you into saying you've committed the overt. Yeah. Like if anyone in Scientology is very, very rigid and in their belief system and would hear someone talking bad about Scientology, they would say she's an SP, he's an SP, suppressive person.
What was that PTS term you said earlier? PTS means what?
Potential trouble source. Means you're connected to a suppressive. What's
post-traumatic stress. D. Yeah. Post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD is PTS. Yeah. That's what caused in you.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's what's so funny is there's so many terms like that. And now that I understand so much more about MK Ultra and understanding back that Hubbard was very involved with Jack Parsons, and wow, you start diving down in that hole. Talk about cults. Yeah. And then you've got Aleister Crowley, and you've got some dark stuff. You've got some really twisted, convoluted stuff. And I think that we should just be free to understand the truth about it, in any religion, in the government, even. My goodness. Talk about the cult in government.
Yeah.
Talk about a cult, right? Yeah.
Pastor goes on and on about that. Government is slavery. And he doesn't break down or has he? I haven't got all those podcasts again in detail how government structures, structured like a cult and all the things in a cult are in government. Did he do that?
Not in the first 75.
Okay.
I don't know. I can check it out. Whoops.
Well, even Archaics, right? He did a video on the characteristics of a cult, 10 characteristics of a cult. And he goes on and on about this churchianity. He was a Christian. He's out of that. They're all cults and blah, blah, blah. And he's going on about all the religious groups and these groups are all cultic and all the 10 characteristics of a cult. But government has all those too. I did a post on my Substack about government has all those. And he's still for law enforcement. He spent 26 years in prison. He's still all for, we need laws. We need law enforcement. Wow. Wow. You've been so much violence he had in prison and the systems and the corruption he's seen.
This is your archaics guy?
Archaics guy. Yeah. I'll give you the post if you want to put it in the show notes. It's interesting. I did all the same characteristics he's going on and on about. He doesn't mention the cult of government, the ultimate one.
So that to me is cognitive dissonance, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a way to put it in the chat?
Is there a chat way I can give it to you?
Yeah. I think
private
so.
Chat? Private chat here.
Yeah.
I'll give you the link. Boom. There you go. You can put it in the chat or put it in the show notes later.
So
he's railing on the cult of churchianity and Christianity, but it's all same for government. Why don't you diss government who did you bad for 26 years, I'd say, and he's still all for law enforcement, and even though
my gosh, the whole prison system is a cult. Yeah, you're right. The prison system, the government, all of it. And what are the solutions? Because I always like to look at what the solutions are. We can talk about what are the problems, and we can diagnose, which is having knowledge about what's wrong. Well, we know what's wrong. So what is right? What is the solution? And for me, the solution, and it was something that I craved early on, I started to talk about it, which was meditation, which was going into the silence.
Yeah.
And going into complete.
You there? We lost you. I lost you anyway.
Thoughts. You there? But let's see.
It paused there for a minute. It might be
your
system that time. I was okay.
Huh.
The video, especially live streams, take a lot of processing power. It'll suck your CPU, and it did on my last time. I had to put on the hardware acceleration, so it'll sometimes overheat your machine, and your CPU is up to 100%. It'll stutter. That's the drawback of Restream. There's other live software might be better.
So let me know what other stream would be better, because I think these are great conversations. I'd love to have more folks interact.
Or but I will just don't live stream it. Just we could record it privately and upload it later. Then there's no problems. It's the live stream that takes a lot of juice.
But I do like the live stream because I like having folks be a part of it. But yeah, we don't have that yet. Anyway, okay, we'll figure it out. So I'll just say this, and then I want your specific take. Solution. What I have found for myself is going to simple truth, which is clearing the screen.
Yeah.
Because thoughts are not true. The moment they become a thought and they're solid, even words, they're misinterpretations, they're labels of something.
Yeah.
So they're not even truth, right?
They're not the actual thing. It's a map, and you start mistaking the map for the actual territory and go there and explore the territory instead of you think you thoroughly know the map and you know the territory.
But it doesn't mean we have to go and destroy all of that or completely, right? It's so now understanding that they're tools. So for me, and I created my own formula. Probably I did get like my acronym stuff from Hubbard, because
signal, anchor, neutral, execute, that one you're talking about.
Well, see, that's the second one I did, but no, I've done multiple. But Pilot Your Way, I've done Pilot Your Way for 25 years. It was how I kind of raised my kids. After I had tried to become a pilot, right? I took that from my first instructor, practicing presence. Yeah. I made the acronym from Pilot, practicing presence. It's like, okay, am I present? Whoop. What's my intention in this moment? Letting go, like literally letting go of all of the attachments, all that's, and my favorite book on this is David Hawkins' Letting Go. Favorite book on that. And then, and by the way, another favorite book of David Hawkins is Power versus Force. It's a must read because he talks about, this is a lot of the tone level in Scientology. There's a whole tone scale frequency. He doesn't use frequencies, he uses tones.
Okay.
But power versus force has the tones or frequencies.
Okay.
And that's an important body of knowledge to understand.
Yeah.
Because we're frequency beings at a level. We're certainly frequency
That's why the
beings.
muscle testing works. You get someone to push their hand down in the ultimate truth of the universe, you'll go weak, and oh, that's a lie.
But it changes. It changes. I've done tests on this. It's not consistent. So, because I loved kinesiology and would use muscle testing, and for a while swore by it until we did specific testing on it. And it changes based on mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. So it's not consistent.
Sure. There's no perfect lie detector, even the muscle detector, and it depends on your subjective. You strongly believe this is true, and so your arm stays steady,
it's
but it's
another
a
cult.
lie.
It's another cult, right?
Well,
It's another cult.
you can never rely on any kind of idea, concept, or system 100%. There's some to it, right? It's something. I've done the muscle testing, and
well, this is what's exciting for us to learn and talk about. It's like, hey, let's try it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, ultimately, if we come back to personal responsibility, but the O is observation. So being able to observe without being attached, and then using the right tool at the right time. And I will still use, actually rarely, I used to use the touch assist and nerve assist, which is something from Scientology. I used to use that regularly, especially with my boys. Now there's other tools that I use. Emotional freedom technique, tapping, so much more valuable. Even Donna Eden's book of spinal flushes and doing, understanding now how the spinal actually works. There's different things on it. Anyway, good conversation.
I'm curious. So then, did you teach your boys some of the Scientology stuff and had to unindoctrinate them? Or was all crumbled enough?
Well, when I taught them, I was using it as a tool, not as a dogmatic thing.
Okay.
They lived it. Anything that I taught them, they lived, not to be dogmatic about it. I remember, however, I take that back. Okay, so I did this it's too strong of a phrase, but brainwashing on them of always apologize. You always apologize. And guess what? Now they say, I'm sorry. Dax doesn't. He's like, fuck you. But Ryder will say, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But that's something that I did. I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So, sorry. It's like, that is a brainwashing, dogmatic cult thing of apologizing and making up damage and being an enemy. I ran a lot of the ethics bullshit on them. You're an enemy of the group. I mean, that is, talk about something suppressive. The whole ethics body of stuff.
Good to be part of the enemy of
shaming somebody.
If the group is evil, it's good to be an enemy of the group.
Well, it's such a shaming, blaming, twisted thing. It's not a healthy, healing thing in any way, shape, or form. And it definitely always served the organization. It was never healthy for the individual. And if it's not healthy for the individual and the organization, something's wrong, right? It was all about the organization.
Yeah, that's what happens with groupthink. So they're like an egregore. I don't know if you know the concept of egregore. Have you heard of it?
Egregore?
Yeah. It's human imagination. It's theorized can give rise to actual entities with a consciousness. And I've theorized maybe this is where the Demiurge or devil archons, these interdimensional beings, are create off own human imagination, and then they get to a point where they take on a life of their own and become like sentient and independent of you, and they start to attack you, or at least they can, right? They take on an independent, almost become alive. You create them. Okay, so a tulpa is one you individually create. An egregore is for a group. So a bunch of individuals create when it kind of merges together as this overarching group. So MAGA, you can't convince a Trump supporter that Trump's a bad guy. They've got an egregore of the whole MAGA group. Trump, he's our savior. He's Jesus, there's an egregore over that type of thinking. It's another term, I know you don't these ideas and concepts.
No, I love that. But when you said the whole Trump thing, it's like, I remember being in that think. I remember being so stuck in that I would act off of that perception. And this is the greatest harm that I see. and that I perpetuated. And that is what I have to make the damage up from, of recruiting people into the Sea Org based off of that false perception. And I feel there is guilt about that because I was such a zealot.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm deeply sad about that.
Did you recruit? How many did you recruit, you'd say?
Folks that actually went into the Sea organization, at least half a dozen.
Okay, 6.
Yeah.
Who hopefully experience the value of a cult, learn a lesson, and get the hell out, right?
I pray every day and send to those that I have known in the past, and just send deep care, genuine care, that they know that they're worthy and loved, and that, I think of somebody who was so special to me, and he died in the Sea Org. His name was Dennis Young, and he was the treasurer, and he worked so hard at Celebrity Center International. And he was the kindest, most wonderful man and human being. He reminded me so much of my father. And he was just wonderful. His wife was wonderful, and his daughter was wonderful, and they were all in the Sea Org. They were all in the Sea Org. And I
You there?
I recall how much sacrifice. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Was in the Sea Org because of your influence?
No.
Okay.
But we all influenced each other. We all were working so hard for this common purpose that we didn't know, but it was basically statistics. Money. Hours and hours and hours in the chair. I would sit in the chair auditing for 9-10 hours a day.
Wow.
They just put the people in front of me, and I would just audit, and then I would sit, and I mean, there's just so much work that I did without thinking of myself at all. And remember my feet being in so much pain from shoes that didn't fit, and how we do this to ourselves for whatever reason. Ugh. I just pray that more of us wake up.
Here's another link I want to give you. I'll send it to you in private chat. Talking about early 1776 and what the Americans tried to do, and over what the difference between natural law and corporate made up human law. They call it whatever. I can't remember the special name for it. But yeah, it's got a bunch of stuff from Corey Angelot on there. You said you liked his stuff, so it's a good post. You might want to give it to people.
Oh, Corey's been doing a lot. Yeah, it's been nice to see what he's creating. Did he do the tech with you? The tech class with Mark Passio?
No, I met him otherwise.
Cool.
He was doing a short video, about 30-second clip. Give me a 30-second clip on what's the most important thing. So I sent him a clip, and then he did a live stream on it months later, and sort of how I met him.
Awesome. Well, I love these conversations, and I guess if it's best that we just record them and put them out in a different way, and we can look at some of the things that I did want to talk about in other conversations where we can discuss. I want to talk about the esoteric, the mystery schools, why they ever existed. So because you know so much about Gnosticism, right? And it's hidden. Would you agree that Gnosticism is hidden knowledge?
It was stamped out. They were viciously hunted down. Their writings burned at the stake. You heard of the Cathars and something like 1,200 friends.
So this is what I want to discuss. I don't want to get into it today because next one, I just really want you to dive in on that and then answer some of the questions that I have with regards to, I'd love to know what the modern equivalent of it is. And then I'd love to know in terms of, are they hiding certain bodies of knowledge because it's inherently dangerous to have that, like burning the witches at the stake. So we had to hide that body of knowledge of herbalism or of midwifery, or things that are the elements, the earth elements, right? They started to hide them because it was literally dangerous. You would not survive if you put that out. So then there became mystery schools.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
They went underground. That's what happened when the Gnostics
Yeah.
started getting killed, and right. That's why they just rediscovered the Nag
So
Hammadi.
that's what I want to talk about next, because did the cult come first, or did it get created, or right? So that's what I would love to talk about. And it'd be interesting because I think there's a part like nations, especially now with this whole thing, like you brought it up, Trump. There's a cult. That's a whole cult in itself, right? This whole, anyway, so many things we can discuss about cults for sure. Thank you so much for this, for the origination, and for being here. Have an amazing night. I'll send this out. Folks, if you have questions about this, if you happen to watch this or you want to learn more or pop in and join us, please comment and let me know.